Okay, good. Well, as everybody who's ever played baseball or softball will tell you, the problem with a softball interview is that you still have to be able to hit a softball. And unfortunately, even when Kamala Harris goes and does a softball interview, she says something that blows up the entire narrative of her campaign. Now, I don't know if you all noticed, but about 10 days ago, she did an interview with The View, all right? Now, that is the easiest interview in the world for a Democratic politician, okay? I love Tucker Carlson, but that's like me going to do an interview with Tucker Carlson and call it a tough interview, right? She gives an interview with The View, and they say, what is one thing that you would have done differently than Joe Biden during your time in office? And she said, nothing comes to mind. Nothing comes to mind. After standing up there and lying for years, or I should say months, about how she's going to somehow be different than Joe Biden, she cannot name a single thing that she would have done differently than Joe Biden. And I think that actually her interview revealed an important truth about the Kamala Harris campaign. If you think about their plans, if you think about their slogans, because they don't really actually have any details, maybe we should change the slogan of the Kamala Harris campaign to nothing comes to mind, because I think that would capture the Kamala Harris campaign better than what they're saying right now. So let's try it out. Kamala Harris, how are you going to lower the price of groceries for American citizens? Nothing comes to mind. Kamala Harris, how are you going to secure the border that you opened for 3.5 years? Nothing comes to mind. Think about it. I think we may have just saved the Kamala Harris campaign, because at least she'll be honest if she just goes out there and says to every question, nothing comes to mind. That would be honest. That would at least solve that one problem for her. But look, we need a president who actually has ideas and a plan and a vision for how to solve this country's problems. So let's just compare and contrast the record of Kamala Harris and the record of Donald Trump, where she did 94 executive orders to open up the American southern border. Donald Trump shut down that southern border, built the wall, and secured America for American citizens. That's a hell of a record to run on. Where Kamala Harris had groceries up by 25% and housing up by 40%, Donald Trump made it affordable to live the American dream for American citizens. Where Kamala Harris wants to raise taxes on American workers and reward companies that ship jobs overseas, Donald Trump wants to cut taxes for American workers and penalize the companies and the countries that are shipping our jobs overseas. And of course, where Kamala Harris has implemented regulation after regulation, she shut down the Keystone Pipeline. Donald Trump is going to reopen that pipeline and open up American energy for all of our citizens. And she's got a problem. Kamala Harris has got a problem because the words have not matched the deeds, and a lot of folks who used to be the foundation of the Democratic Party are abandoning the Democratic Party in big numbers, especially in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Now, a lot of you know my story. I was raised by two blue-collar Democrats, my grandparents who took care of me because my own mom struggled with addiction. But I think my grandparents, if they were alive today, they would be doing what a lot of other Union Democrats are doing, which is recognizing that the Democratic Party of Kamala Harris has left them behind, and they are welcome in the Republican Party of Donald J. Trump. That's why, my friends, and I'm proud about this, over 65% of Pennsylvania Teamsters support Donald J. Trump for president. And that's why union workers, non-union workers, but pretty much just everybody with common sense is welcome in the big tent Republican Party of Donald Trump. I don't care what letters next to your name, you're welcome in our movement. Now, I want to talk just about, somebody asked me earlier why we think we have so much division in the United States of America. I think it's an important, it's an important question, because I think, look, whoever they vote for, whatever their background, I genuinely do think most of our fellow citizens are good people. Whether Democrat, Independent, or Republican, they're our neighbors, they're our friends. But here's, when Kamala Harris talks about division, she likes to blame the Republicans in our country for being the source of that division. And I'm thinking to myself, well, where is the leadership of this country? If you've been the vice president for 3.5 years, maybe the divisiveness in this country is something you ought to look in the mirror about rather than blame Republicans all over the United States of America. But I also think that one of the biggest sources of division in the United States of America is that we have leaders who would rather censor their fellow citizens than listen to them and persuade them. And this is an important thing that's changed about this country. And I want you to go back, my friends, to just a few weeks ago. I pointed out that there's a small town in Ohio, and of course there's Charleroi, Pennsylvania. There's what's going on in Aurora, Colorado. We are seeing all across this country that criminal gangs sometimes are moving into our communities and making it unsafe for American citizens. And even if it's not criminal gangs, sometimes it's just people moving into our communities who have no legal right to be there in the first place. Now that causes a lot of problems, especially for the folks who are watching this at home. When we add thousands upon thousands of children of illegal aliens to Pennsylvania schools, children who can't even speak the local language, that means American citizens lose quality in their education. When we bring in millions upon millions of illegal aliens and give them free health care, that means hospital wait times in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania have shot up for Pennsylvania families. I feel terrible for anybody who's got to take their kid to the emergency room, because you're going to wait longer than 3 hours because there are millions of people in the United States of America who don't have the legal right to be here. And here's the thing, Kamala Harris and her friends in the media, they will say that somehow Donald Trump doesn't support Social Security and Medicare. Donald Trump is fighting to protect Social Security and Medicare every single day. But I'll tell you what is going to bankrupt Social Security and Medicare, and that's Kamala Harris's plan to give Social Security and Medicare to illegal aliens who have no right to be here in the first place. So while Kamala Harris wants to roll out the red carpet for illegal aliens and give them Medicare and Social Security, the message of Donald J. Trump to people who are in this country illegally is simple. Pack your bags, because in 4 months you're going back home. But it's not just that I disagree with Kamala Harris on the policy of immigration. You know what really gets me going is when Kamala Harris attacks the citizens of her own country as racist for daring to say that she should not have opened up the southern border. I think it's one of the most disgraceful things. So I think our message to Kamala Harris ought to be very simple. Stop trying to censor us for criticizing your government. Stop calling us racist for saying that we got to close down that southern border. Stop accusing us of being bad people because we have the audacity to say to Kamala Harris that she ought to do her damn job. She needs to look in the mirror and stop attacking the citizens of her own country. And I think that is what has led to the divisiveness in our country. Because Donald Trump, whether we agree with you or disagree with you, whether you vote for us in 2024 or don't, we're rooting for you because you're our fellow citizens, and we will always fight for your right to speak your mind. Our founders, the genius of the First Amendment is not just that it protects everybody's rights. The genius of the First Amendment is that when we debate our ideas, rather than censor one another, we can actually come to the table, we can disagree, but still share a meal with one another afterwards. And we ought to... And we ought to remember that while Kamala Harris and Tim Walz talk a big game about bringing our country together, you do not bring our fellow citizens together by trying to silence them. You bring our fellow citizens together by talking with them and inviting the conversation about how we're going to make this country better and fix our problems. That is what Donald Trump and I promise you and promise everybody who's watching. We may not always agree with one another, but we will fight for your right to speak your mind, because this is America and we get to say whatever the hell we want to. Thank you all. Thank you all. Sorry, I got a little fired up there, but I want to say one more thing, and then we'll take a few questions from reporters. And you guys are welcome to stay and watch me as I answer these questions. But I want to remind you that as much as the energy is really good in Pennsylvania, and we've got a lot of good energy in Pennsylvania, I think we're going to win this state, and we're going to win it in a big way. And by the way, we're not just winning Pennsylvania just for President Trump and J.D. Vance. We're winning Pennsylvania for Dave McCormick, who's running for the Senate. Let's get out there and support him. And for a lot of our great congressional candidates, and I know we've got great state candidates running too, but we're not going to do it unless we get out there and vote. So I want to make three requests of every single person in this room. Number one, first thing I'd like you to do is take out your phone, take it out right now, take a photo of this event, take a photo, take a selfie, take a photo of me, whatever. Post about it on social media or send it to your friends in text message. Tell them why you're voting for Donald Trump and remind them that we've all got to get out there and vote on or before November the 5th, okay? And that brings me to my second point. Look, I am not a fan, I'll be honest with you, of election season over election day. But Donald Trump has said this very well, it is what it is. And we've got to take advantage of all the methods that we can to vote, because if we're not doing it, we're giving ground to the other side. So vote by absentee if you're not going to be in town. Vote by mail if that's what you want to do. Vote early if that's what you want to do. Vote election day. Just make sure you get out there and vote. But I believe that we've done more in the last few years on election integrity at the Republican National Convention. So rest assured, we are fighting every single day that your vote is going to count, but only if you get out there and actually cast it. So everybody, make sure you get out there and vote. Two more requests here. The third thing is I don't want just you to vote. I want everybody to get out there and get 9 of their friends and family to the polls too. Because if you do that, look, Pennsylvania could be decided by a couple thousand votes. And none of us want to wake up on November the 6th, this is nightmare fuel, with the idea of a president-elect Kamala Harris. So if you want to prevent that, don't just get yourself to the polls, get your friends and family out there too. Every single one of us commit 9 people in addition to yourselves to get out there and vote. And this is the final thing I want to say. I'm going to read this website because I want to make sure I get it right. SwampTheVoteUSA.com, okay? And I'm going to repeat it again, SwampTheVoteUSA.com. At that website, you can find information about where to register, check your registration, check your polling location, make sure that if you've requested an absentee ballot, you can know how to track it. Because we're not going to win this election off the lies of the corporate media and the Kamala Harris campaign. We're going to win this election by working our rear ends off for it and getting out there and voting. So swampthevoteusa.com, go to that website, check your registration, and make sure we all get out there and vote. Look, I think, man, We're 19 days out, and I'm feeling good about this election. I really think that we're in a position not just to elect Donald Trump the next president, but to take this country back in a very, very big and meaningful way. So let's do it. So I'm grateful to all of you for being here. I'm grateful for what you've already done, but most of all, I'm grateful that we're all going to work our butts off for the next 19 days and make Donald Trump the next president of the United States. God bless you all. Thank you for having me. I'll take some questions from the reporters now. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all so much, but we're not done yet. We'll have a little bit more fun, but I'd ask that we start with the local reporters. I'll probably take 4 or so questions just because we've got to get on the road, but let's start. First question, I don't know if we got a microphone back there. I assume we do. Oh, and I love Jesus. Thank you, ma'am. It's always good to have that reminder. Jesus does love every single one of us, and that's an important thing. God bless you. First question.
All right. Hi, Senator. Excuse me. Hi, Senator Vance. My name's Stephen Moore.
Good to see you.
I'm from WTRF Channel 7 in wild and wonderful Wheeling, West Virginia.
There we go.
All right. Now, the U.S. labor force participation rate is historically low. Among young men in particular. There are a lot of reasons for this, from drug addiction, lack of education, mental health problems. How does this administration plan to address this issue and get our young people back to work so they can start families, buy homes, and participate in the American dream?
Yes, sir, a very important question, and the most important way to get people back into the labor force is to make sure that we've got good jobs and the dollar goes far enough to support a family in this country. If you want to get people back to work, you've got to make sure that when they earn $1, first of all, they get to keep as much of it as possible, which is why we want to lower folks' taxes. But second of all, a lot of people are not going to choose to work if they work 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week, and they can't afford food, they can't afford to buy a house. This inflation that we've experienced under Kamala Harris's leadership, we've got to make the dollar worth $1 again, and that's something Donald Trump and I are going to fight for every single day. Now, a second thing that we've got to do is that we've got to promote more pathways in this country to the middle class. When I was growing up, what everybody told me, all my guidance counselors, all my teachers, they told everybody, you got to go to college, you got to go to college, you got to go to college. Well, here's the thing. Now we're waking up and we realize we've got way too many basket weavers with a 4-year college degree, but we don't have enough electricians, enough welders, enough people who can build things in this country, and that's got to change. So we want to make it easier. Whatever you want to do, if you want to go be a doctor, go be a doctor. But if you want to work with your hands and build something in the greatest country in the history of the world, we've got to make sure there are pathways available for people who want to do that. And I think that's how we get people back engaged with the workforce, is we give them the training for the kind of jobs that they want to do. It's going to make our whole country better in the process. Thank you for the question.
Good afternoon, Nicole Ford here with WPXI in Pittsburgh. When it comes to Pennsylvania, which county are you going to look at the margins first to know that you have won the state?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I mean, look, I'm a political candidate. I'm not much of a political prognosticator. The only prognostication I'll make is that Pennsylvania is going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States. I really do believe that. But look, I mean, the smart people who know this state will tell you, you got to look at Bucks County in the east. You got to look at, of course, Erie County in the west. There are a couple of really important counties that we're going to be paying attention to. But look, if you look at this, my friends, is why I'm so excited and why I'm so optimistic about this race. If you look at the early voting numbers, if you look at how much redder Pennsylvania has gotten in just the last couple of years, we are going to win this race so long as we work for it over the next 19 days. I really do believe that. But Let me say the final point I want to make about this is the reason why I think President Trump's message resonates so well in Pennsylvania, more frankly than Republicans did from 20 years ago, is that President Trump believes in making things in America and stamping more products with the incredible label, Made in the USA. And the only way... Look, Pennsylvania has some of the proudest tradition of steel manufacturing, of craftsmanship in the entire country, frankly, in the entire world, but we have gotten way too far away from self-reliance in the United States of America. Let me give you a statistic that scares the hell out of me, and it should scare every person in Pennsylvania. China has 32% of world manufacturing GDP. That means of the goods that are made, 32% of them are made in China. Do you know what the number is for the United States of America? 18%. That means China makes more stuff, and I'm talking about the pharmaceuticals that we put into the bodies of our children, some of the important weapon systems of the future, the computer chips. We've got to make more of our own stuff in the United States of America, and the way to do that is to lower regulations, lower energy costs for American businesses, and to rebuild the great American middle class. And the final point I'll make about this, and this is where President Trump gets the most criticism, but it's also where President Trump is the most right. If you are a business and you rely on foreign slave labor at $3 a day, the only way to rebuild American manufacturing is to say, if you want to bring that product made by slave labor back into the United States of America, you're going to pay a big fat tariff before you get it back into our country. And my message to Pennsylvanians, don't trust anybody, especially Kamala Harris. When she tells you she's going to rebuild American manufacturing without forcing the Chinese to pay a tariff, there is no way to do it unless you're fighting hard against the people who are stealing our jobs and stealing our manufacturing industries. You got to do it. And if you're not doing it, you're not serious about rebuilding the American middle class. Next question.
Hi, JD. Adam Bobeski for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. You've raised a lot of concerns about election security and integrity, and I wanted to know if you think it cuts both ways. If you're leading in the popular vote, or the vote nationally after election week, do you think that Kamala Harris should concede if she has similar concerns?
Well, look, I think whoever wins this election, and it's going to be Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, we certainly expect to have a good election. We certainly expect to be congratulating the winner, and we certainly expect that that winner is going to be us. But look, you can say on the one hand you don't think big tech should be interfering in an election, while at the same time respecting the results of the election. I don't think there's any inconsistency in that. I'm going to keep on saying that American citizens have the right to be heard. American citizens have the right to have every legal ballot count. We're going to keep on working on legislation when we're in office, like the SAVE Act, which makes it harder for illegal aliens to vote in American elections. And I think like most people in our country, whether they agree or disagree with me on any given issue, can admit that, you know, we can have faith in the 2024 election, and I do have faith in the 2024 election, while accepting that we can do a hell of a lot better at the same time. Both of those thoughts can be held in our heads at the same time, and that's certainly true, I think, for a majority of the residents of this Commonwealth. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ryan Dito. I'm with the Pittsburgh Tribune-Review. You talked a little bit about housing cost.
Sure.
Kind of wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on kind of issues on dealing with the supply of housing. I know that here in Pittsburgh we have, just like everywhere, kind of a bad supply of housing. How do we boost that, and how do we address that issue?
Yes, sir. Look, an important question. And look, we got to talk about the supply issue and the demand issue. So you asked about supply, so I'll start there. We don't make enough houses. There's not a high enough supply of houses in the United States of America. What does that mean? lower energy costs to make it easier to build. That's why we say drill, baby, drill is maybe the most important part of lowering housing costs. You got to get mortgage rates lower again so that people can afford to buy a home when they find a home that they like. And the third thing is you've got to end all of these ridiculous regulations that make it harder for people to build homes in the United States of America. We're the proudest building country in the world. We got to get back to that very proud tradition. But we also got to be honest. If you build 5 million new homes over the next 3 years, but you import 25 million illegal aliens, the price of housing is going to go up. Because when American homes don't go to American citizens, that is one of the biggest drivers of the increase in housing costs. So here's the simple Donald Trump plan to reduce housing costs for American citizens. Build more American homes, but make sure they go to American citizens, not people who don't have the legal right to be here. Thank you. We'll do just a couple more.
Bar with KDKA TV News. Trump references the enemy from within. Would a Trump administration use the military to go after people who oppose Donald Trump?
Oh, of course not. Of course not. Look, if you go back to the summer, look, ma'am, I'm glad you asked the question because I think it's so preposterous. First of all, the biggest problem that we have in this country right now is that because of Kamala Harris, people can't afford groceries and housing. We've got to fix that problem. That's why Donald Trump and I are running to redeliver prosperity for the American people. The second biggest problem we have in the United States of America is that we've got 25 million illegal aliens, many of them who have committed violent crimes who shouldn't be in the United States to begin with. And by the way, those are the issues that Pennsylvanians care the most about. When you go out and talk to them, you look at the polls, we ought to be talking about how to redeliver peace and prosperity for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's what President Trump and I are focused on. But look, the media picks up on this question when he makes this observation that we've also got to have law and order in our own country too, because this is an important issue. Do we remember? The media loves to talk about January the 6th, and of course, January the 6th of 2021, if you were violent, if you committed acts of violence, then you should be prosecuted for them. Everybody believes that. But what they don't like to talk about is just a few months prior when $13 billion of damage and 20 lives were lost in the mass riots across this country in the summer of 2020. And what President Trump has said quite directly is that look, if that ever happens again, if you ever have people who think that they can not just exercise their First Amendment right, but loot and riot and burn down American cities, we are going to go after them, and we're going to go after them hard. We do not tolerate that crap in the United States of America.
Hi, Kaylee Gunderson, WTAE Channel 4 in Pittsburgh. I know you've touched on election integrity, but I want to ask specifically about mail-in voting. How do you reconcile former President Donald Trump and members of the Republican Party previously casting doubt on integrity of mail-in voting when now many in the Republican Party and yourself are encouraging supporters to vote by mail?
So let me say two things about that. First of all, as I said earlier, I don't love that we've gotten away from just having an election day where everybody casts the same ballot, everybody casts it on the same day. But again, the people of Pennsylvania, through their elected legislatures, through the governor, have changed how this works. And so I'm not saying that I prefer mail-in voting. I'm saying that mail-in voting is now here, so let's deal with that reality and make sure our voices count just as much as the other side. That's all that we're saying here. Now, by the way, a number of international organizations, a number of folks have talked about the fact that mail-in voting can sometimes introduce problems, and we're fighting every single day to make sure those problems don't happen in Pennsylvania or anywhere else in our country. And here are the things that you've got to do. You've got to make sure that mail-in votes are have the proper signature matching. You got to make sure that mail-in votes are properly tracked to a real registered voter. There are all of these things that we can do, and the Republican Party is fighting every single day, not just for our own voters, but for everybody, because we want every legal ballot to cast and count, but we only want the legal ballots to count, not the illegal ballots. And so we've got the election integrity efforts underway to make sure that whether you're voting by mail, whether you're voting early, or whether you're voting in person, that your ballot is going to count. So my message again to everybody is get out there and vote, because it's the only way that we're going to send Kamala Harris back to San Francisco where she belongs. So on that note, because we're going to have to hit the road here, and I'm very excited. My friends, my cousin, who's more like a little sister to me, she's getting married tomorrow. So let's give her a round of applause. We'll tell her that the people. I'll tell my cousin Bonnie Rose, she's named after my mamaw. I'll tell Bonnie Rose that the thoughts, the prayers, and the blessings and the good wishes of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania go with her on this new journey. But I want to tell you a story, and I've got so many stories because I've learned so much about our country over the last few weeks. I mean, people always ask me how I'm doing, and I appreciate you asking, but the answer is I'm doing as good as a person possibly could. Because aside from being married to my beautiful wife and being a father to our 3 kids, the greatest honor of my entire life is to stand up here and ask all of you to make me your next Vice President of the United States. It is a cool thing. It is a great honor. But I also, one of the things that happens, of course, is you get to meet a lot of people. And there's a woman that I met a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact, and you know, she was just in one of these photo lines. You take photos with people before, and she was talking to me about how she was really hurting because she couldn't afford groceries anymore. And she was talking about the things they cut back on, the things they like to have in their house, but they don't have anymore because they've got to make ends meet, and they've got to make do with what they have. And she spent about 30 seconds telling me about how she was struggling to buy groceries. And then she spent the next 3 minutes telling me that she prays for my family every day. She knew the 3 names of our beautiful kids, that she prays for each one of them by name every single day. And she spent more time asking me how I was than talking about her problems, even though I'm the one who gets to run for vice president, and she's worried about paying her bills. And I've met so many people like that. And you know what it's taught me? It's taught me that we have a generosity of spirit among our people that I wasn't fully aware of until I accepted this incredible honor. And I think that when you realize how great the people of the United States of America are, and how beautiful of a country we have. I was in Williamsport, Pennsylvania just yesterday, I believe, and we get off the plane, and there's this mountain by the airport that is red and yellow and orange and green because, of course, Pennsylvania is really beautiful, but especially this time of year. And we've got the best natural resources. I mean, the Chinese and the Russians would literally kill for, sometimes they have, for the natural resources that we have just right here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I realize that as frustrated as sometimes we get, and certainly as frustrated as I get, with the failure of Kamala Harris's leadership, we've got to remember, my friends, that the only thing that is truly broken about the United States of America is the failed leadership in Washington, D.C. So over the next 19 days, when you're feeling tired or you're sick of talking about the election, I want you to remember that woman who is working hard to elect Donald Trump and is worried that if he's not elected president, she's going to go another 4 years where she's not able to afford her groceries. I want you to remember a kid like me where sometimes my mamaw wouldn't turn on the heat at night if times were especially tight, we'd throw a few extra blankets on and just make do. And I'd like you to remember that the basic principle that every American citizen deserves to have safe communities. Every American citizen deserves to turn on the heat during the middle of a cold winter night. Every American citizen, so long as they work hard and play by the rules, ought to be able to afford the groceries that they want for themselves and their families, and that is only going to happen if we get Donald J. Trump back in the White House. So let's go fight for it. Let's go earn it. Let's go make Donald Trump the next president.